All right, good evening, everyone. And by everyone, I guess I mean Brian. He's the only one here. Welcome to part 3 of 5 of my 2007 Capital Limited B&O Main Line survey photos. For the last couple days, we've been making our way from ultimately Chicago, but really Pittsburgh to D.C. on the B&O Main Line. I'm pretty sure I had a sleeper, but whatever I was doing, I was standing at the back of the train getting photos. I would do this many times over the next about 8 or so years, up until 2014, at which point all the CPLs have been removed and I sort of deprioritized riding this route. So anyway, today we're going to be working from I think I put it in the thing as going from Mexico, but that kind of didn't quite work out. We're going to be going from a little bit east of Mexico, interlocking, or Mexico, Maryland, crossing the river into West Virginia. We're going to be starting at the town of Green Springs and moving all the way to Hancock. This is going to be the meaty part of the CPLs, the Magnolia Cutoff. These are the ones that lasted the longest, probably till around about 2014. That's when the last of them were disappeared. And we'll just sort of talk a little bit about this. It's one of these days I hope to put these in my blog in the same way I did the PRR, as I do have sufficient documentation on this route to cover it. So, as we saw before, this is in what used to be the this was in the territory of Patterson Creek Tower. There's a YouTube video that I'll see if I can drop it in the comments that shows what the NX, the GRS unit lever CTC panel for this looked like. Eventually, because it was, it's all, you could put a computer front end on it. It was all remote controlled. One of the few parts of the system that actually had the tower get closed. But we will be seeing Hancock interlocking, one of the last few mechanically worked lever frame, mechanical worked switches in the country. I'm not sure we're going to get to all of that today. What we are going to start at is Green Spring interlocking. This was one of the later ones. I think this was done in the 80s or 90s. Although I said the CTC here predates, by a good margin, the 80s or 90s. Bits and pieces of it, like the scale track and stuff, I think were a later addition. So this is the east end of the third what is the third track, but is really a scale track siding with a speed of 25 miles an hour. We have you can tell that this was post 1980. I forget the date. I think it's 84, 83 or 84 when you could begin to have CPLs or signals mounted on the left hand side of the track. Before you needed FRA, ICC or FRA approval, around 1984, 86. Actually, I think it was 83, 84. You could start mounting them bidirectionally, as we're seeing right here. So that instantly provides a bound on the date, and that would jive with the hardware that you see here. Green Spring interlocking itself, it's a crossover with the end of that third track siding. It's going to be fairly close to another interlocking called Okinokono, which was one of the original CTC crossovers in the area, but they said this was spliced in for whatever reason. I actually managed to visit this interlocking in person. Didn't get a full survey of it because I was a little bit pressed for time. It was around 2008, I think, maybe a year or so after this. Maybe it was later this summer. I can't quite remember when I went out here. Here we have a CSX guy who is probably getting ready to ride that tank car as part of a shove. Damn it. There's always a lot of neat stuff going on in addition to the signals when you're at the back. This is probably the front end of that train. Not sure what he's about to do. Led by 6468 there with the road slug, painted in the all gray scheme. Not sure. I don't know there's a jillion little CSX schemes. I don't have the chart handy. But they put a lot of those GP30s and GP35s as in the road slugs. I tended to see. I think I recall this, whatever this local freight here. I tend to remember seeing it often on the when I would come by in the Capital Limited. This was sort of out. This is out and about at this time. I think I have other photos of this train. Today, all the road slugs are in the dark future scheme, of course. Never quite sure what this bridge is. I'm sure I've looked it up. I could look it up again. Hopefully, I got it labeled early on. It's the South Branch of the Potomac River. So we are south of the Potomac, but this is specifically the South Branch of the Potomac River. This really would have been one of the first times I could routinely. I tried to do this once. When I say take a line survey, with my old camera, I really didn't have the card capacity to take. With only 3 times 90 photos, I couldn't just sit at the back and take a photo of everything. With these 1 gigabyte memory cards on my on this second generation Olympus, I had hundreds of photos I could use. So this is really the first time. Remember, I got the new camera at the end of 2016, so this would have been the first time I was on a long distance train where I could just sit at the back and just take picture after picture after picture after picture. So while I had individual photos of some of the stuff on these lines, this is really the first time where I was presented with getting all of them. And you can see, because my naming convention is bad, or not up to my current standards. Here we have 2 more of those 1980s or early 90s CPL masts. Again, this post-dates the other parts of the signaling on the line, which are probably from the 1950s or 60s. So that was previously was Green Springs interlocking. These are the signals at milepost 160 or Long's Crossing. Now here we are at Okanokono. This one would slowly be chipped away by having its bits and pieces of its signals slowly replaced. But in 2007, these CPL masts were freshly painted. I don't know what happened that made it slowly lose them, but these guys would not outlive their paint job. Before they went with all the Darth Vaders and the aluminum, CSX followed, the B&O followed Conrail practice with silver mast bases and black mast uppers to provide contrast with the signal lamps. Also, we've got Conrail style direct burner point heater shields down there. I really have to be careful with my namespace because I have a lot of duplicates of these. Okinokono Interlocking had this very interesting, sort of almost ahead of its time for the relay hut. It was clearly we're in a floodplain, and that was one of the ones that were raised far enough off the ground to avoid getting constantly flooded out. Okay, so here's the issue. Yeah, by this point, for whatever reason, the westbound signals had been replaced. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if I have ever got photos of the opposite ones. I'm not sure why they got replaced as early as they did. Now we're into the realm of what used to be the 4-track. This whole line had either 4-track or it was 2x2 or 2+1. Because the Magnolia cutoff, when you have a cutoff, you have an old road. And the old road was left in service up through the modern era, probably the 60s or 70s. So during the heyday, you had 4 tracks. You can tell it's a 4-track right of way. 2 of them would split off and become the old road, and then the other 2 would be the cutoff, and then they would come back together and be 4-track again. The 4-track goes pretty much from Miller Tower to here. Actually, you can see there was 3-track right away even further on. And that involved what we also call the low-grade line, which was, today it still exists, but it's a single track, probably was double track, that went from West Cumbo Tower. Now it'd be interesting to see if Amtrak crews are qualified on that. They have to be, but I don't know how they ever get qualified on that 3rd track. I've never been, it's like the one from Johnstown to Conpit. Although my friend has a video of the Pennsylvanian, a head-end video of the Pennsylvanian having to take that route. It adds about 15 minutes. So there are some definite, so that third track there, it exists, but like that's the rarest it's rare mileage that's regular rare mileage. And it's totally on the whims of the dispatcher. Who knows why that would happen? Derailment, switch failure, stalled train, who knows? But, getting to ride low grade track 3. But anyway, I'm getting way ahead of myself. This is Little Niagara, milepost 155. 2 approach indications showing. So this is in the old GRS traffic control system. This means that without an established route, signals will float. The USNS system, which used oftentimes it would use hard traffic. What do they call those? Directions of traffic. You set a traffic lever. One signal is displayed. The other signals stop and proceed. All those intermediates. GRS, they would tumble down, but as soon as that train passed, they would float. So you would have 2 clears on either side, or 2 approaches, or whatever else you'd have. This allowed trains that were maybe waiting in a siding, like a local freight, to be able to come out, seize the block, and begin moving in a opposite direction. I never got out to Little Niagara, but I got out to a lot of its contemporaries. First signal we're going to get is Paw Paw. So I should actually show people where we're at, because this is important. Come on, there we go. So this is where we were before Patterson Creek. Patterson Creek Tower is right there. You're in the valley. Here's the old tie plant that went defunct in 2016. Unfortunately, the site's been largely abandoned. Every time you went by there were just stacks and stacks of railroad ties getting creosoted there. There's Green Spring. There's Okanokono. So you actually, this little part here is pretty quick. And now you come out of that valley. There's Patterson Creek. This has got a lot of good 60, 70 mile an hour, or like I said, you got some 60, 65 mile an hour in that thing between Patterson Creek and Green Spring. You're moving pretty, after all that 30 mile an hour before, you're going pretty quick. There's the tie plant facility. There's Okanokono. Here's the town of Paw Paw. I've actually been there. Oh, if you're ever around Green Spring, there's a really cool privately owned toll bridge. It's like $1 to pass. They literally there's a woman in a booth with a can on a stick, hands it out to your car. Okay, anyway, here's the important part. I'm going to go back to the map. Brown lines. Little Niagara was somewhere in here. Not sure, they've moved the signals around. You can't really see them anymore. The Niagara cutoff, the Magnolia cutoff was done about the 1910, 1911, 1913. But you can see where the old road is. There's your old road. So Okanokono would have been the end of the old 4-track. Probably a much more complicated interlocking back in the day. But you can then see there's your first tunnel on the cutoff, but you can see the old road of that brown line, and it just sort of goes following exactly along the river, whereas the cutoff literally just makes a straight beeline and cuts off those bends. This is the Paw Paw signal, east direction only. Oh there's also the cutoff cut off 6 miles because milepost 150 to 154 are not used. Those are the missing miles of when you shorten your main line substantially by cutting off all the river bends. All right, that'll work. Sorry, just getting this one in here. So this lasted as one of the last bastions of CPLs because it was CTC'd. It did have a pole line though, so that's why it met its demise early in the PTC replacement era. It was it's the stuff you get with the pole lines were an incredible cost center. So now we are inside the Carruthers Tunnel. The 4 Magnolia tunnels. Magnolia cutoff tunnels. The B&O like to name all of its tunnels. They have even on the brick ones, they'll have a little nameplate above it. See if people have any questions here. It's Cumberland sub. Well, I'm not moving around. I mean, I'm moving to different things on the presentation, but I am. The pictures are all linear, so each one is one after another from the back of the Amtrak train as they presented themselves. And for those of you who missed it, the date is these photos are from 2007. And we are currently on the Magnolia Cutoff. The Magnolia Cutoff. So here we have the eastern portal of the Carruthers Tunnel. CSX unfortunately did a double stack project on this route. And although I guess it is in character with the chassis system, they literally put they notched out the tunnels for D-stacks, and it looks like cat's ears. For all of these portals, they look like a cat. So, I mean, I guess it kind of mars the beautiful, you can see the date up there of, I think it's 1910. No, 1914, there you go. Definitely mars the reinforced concrete of the portals. But it is in character with the chassis system. An interesting thing to always remember about reinforced concrete is that 1910 or thereabouts was really where reinforced concrete became a thing. I'm sure you can go back and find the original whatever, but around 1910, I'm sure a little bit earlier, but for rule of thumb, That was the 3D printing, the carbon fiber of its day, and it really hit the mainstream. The Lackawanna went nuts on it, and all the railroads began shifting from brick to the railroads that had money shifted from brick to reinforced concrete. I said today it's like reinforced concrete. That's basic. Back then it was really high tech, and honestly, the concrete mixes they were using were really good, especially whatever the Lackawanna was, because that stuff is indestructible. Today, there's a lot. They've really refined the mixes to get the amount of limes down. Get different weights, get different tensile strengths. It's a real science, but in the day, they just they own it with their basic understanding. This was made for strength and durability, and so just when you see these where's all this concrete coming from 1910? Like I said, it was just that was the point where reinforced concrete just took over industry by storm. So if you're wondering why that pawpaw was a singleton, its twin was the right here in the form of I believe this is Hansrote. I'm sure that I'm pronouncing these bad. No, this is Carruthers. My bad. You can see the pole line right there, how it goes up and over the mountaintop on its own little right of way. Also, double track CTC, that's a lot of wires. This is not some ABS rinky-dink Rule 251. You saw a few wires, if you remember the last part when we were on the Keystone sub, how few wires that pole line had for the double track ABS. For these CTC systems, you're looking at 5 cross members, 4, 5 cross members. Carruthers was always interesting because it was for whatever reason they decided to go with a 4-block arrangement between here and Okanokono. So you had approach at Little Niagara, and then these for a stop at Little Niagara would be approach medium. Some of the signals did not float. I think this is one of them that did not. I don't know why. Also, you'll see weird mileposts on these signals. 83, 81. That's because the Magnolia cutoff had its own mileposting until CSX was until they closed the old road, and then CSX just rammed through their milepost, but never changed the number plates on the signals. Gonna double check that. Yep, track 1. I'm aware that the signals would flip, but this one did not. I would zoom the camera in, ready to catch that signal flip. But today I just got sort of a zoomy reddish little thing going on there. I wonder if I cut it. No, I didn't cut it. Nope, that makes it worse. So this is where the old road used to be down at a lower level, the cutoff maintaining a more consistent grade. I have construction photos in one of the guy who did Avon Hill. I forget his name. I bought the book covering this section, and there's pictures of this cut, this retaining wall being constructed. It is something quite impressive. It used some crazy amount of concrete. Just like the Lackawanna, this was built at the exact time the Lackawanna cutoff was being built. Railroads, as soon as they had these new construction techniques and materials with reinforced concrete, and they didn't have to do stone embankments, they didn't have to do brick line tunnels, there was just this boom of cutoff building to improve main lines. Up through the 1920s, the railroads were absolutely flush with, as the rail as a mode had a national transport monopoly and all the money that came with it. Money for, capital improvements. Here we have the first of the bridge tunnel bridge combination over the Potomac. We are leaving West Virginia and entering Maryland briefly. Now we're inside the, because of the G, I want to say it's Garrett, but it's not. Graham Tunnel. There we go. I'm sure these all sound like names of division, B&O management or superintendents or whatnot. Before they had stock options, that's how they would reward management. Get your name on the thing. And here we can see, again, this little part between that bridge and this bridge, that's Maryland, and then we're going right back into West Virginia. I've been to the site you're seeing up is the famous Magnolia signals, the Magnolia brackets. I've been there, but because these bridges are long and don't have great walkways, and there's a lot of traffic, I've never really thought of venturing by them. You'd have to use the refuges. Again, you can see the scar for the pole line. You gotta, you have to again, CSX is responsible for having to maintain that. Definitely not something that they really wanted to do. Here's the Magnolia bracket, one of them. They're a pair. And again, you can see that pole line right of way, cutting all the way up the mountain. It'd be interesting to see when that gets filled in by brush and such. You can look at the map in a second. And here we have the other ones. Again, these are the ones that did float. So if you pass by and you got the zoom in right, you could catch them with this double green clear. Or yeah, this is really nice. Now, the downside was when I went out there, I did not catch them. I did not get any train movements. I did not. They were approach lit, so I did not get any good pictures of them lit up. Another interesting thing was that they put in, as part of their tunnel clearance program and the resignaling, they dumped a new interlocking here. So there's a new crossover called Magnolia right here, and these were an early casualty. Was weird, for a brief period they actually replaced these with brand new temporary CPL masts before the interlocking was fully in. So and now we're into the next tunnel, which is, if I recall, I think it's Stewart, but it's either Stewart or Randolph. I can remember almost, but not exactly what they all were. Let's find out. Stewart. I think Stewart might be the longest, and then Randolph is the shortest. So again, just to show you where we are, there's that. This is, Stewart's the longest, Randolph is the shortest. At least I think it is. Paw might be shorter. But again, that's where the embankment is, the great concrete embankment. Barely see it now, but there's the line right there. Then they cut in Bridge, Graham Tunnel, Magnolia. Well, there's the new interlocking they built. One interesting thing was actually when I went out there to visit the signals, this was a point. So the pole line also carries the power. Usually is a 440 volt split phase kind of thing. This is where one of the power feeds was, and I have photos of that. And now we're in the Stewart Tunnel. And here's the other side of the Stewart Tunnel. Yeah, it's interesting when you see these tunnels. It's just our mind normally thinks of everything being double stack cleared. You're always like, how do you fit two tracks in that tunnel? But they're pretty big when you're there. But without the need for double stacks, most railroad tunnels were, a lot of them were built, for two regular single stack trains. It's not as tall as you might think it is. And then true single track tunnels are really narrow, or at least appear to be very, very narrow. All right, that's the end of this one. Any questions? I mean, I've never really had an issue on 30. I've had usually I'm gonna, they know I'm in a sleeper. By that point in the trip, there's enough people in the train coming out of Pittsburgh that they need all the cars. Today there's like one coach, so what are they gonna do? I've so many sets of photos from 30 and even 29 just because I've so rarely had issues. You only really have issues when they have to close that car. Back in like especially in winter when that back car is closed. They get a lot of Amish on at Pittsburgh, and then they'll reopen that. But in December of in the winter months, if they have two cars, they'll close one out of DC. But you're losing light by the end of metro territory, so there's really not, or Brunswick or whatever. I've got videos of this route. I've got this covered so many ways. I didn't get out to all these, so by the time I realized that CSX was doing a rip and tear, they'd already hacked the westernmost. But fortunately, I was able to do I was able to get the the eastern E ones between Hancock and Orleans Road. So now we're in Hands Road. And by the way, I'm not sure you saw it, but my original during this set when I was doing it 15 years ago, 15, 19, whatever years ago, I was saying things like west signals, east signals, stuff like that. This is the point where I just started using eastward and westward. I'm going to keep those. I tell you use eastbound, westbound for my descriptions, but eastward and westward will work just as well for batching them together. Trying to figure out how to do this. There you go. That one works. Hands Road sort of has a split thing going on. They're kind of offset. Not entirely sure why, but they are. This is what you'd see in Europe, where they use signal overlap. So you rarely see back-to-back signals, because they'll put. That's why PTC. That's why absolute stop was so hard to enforce to implement over here. Because in Europe they'd already applied, they'd already started they'd been, the standard for years was to have signal overlaps, where you have the signal offset from where the actual block boundary is or rail join is. So you have a built-in stop gap, so you can get the train slowed and then you can do a trip stop at the signal. And now we're in the Randolph Tunnel. I don't even really need to change this one. It's pretty well framed. So the Magnolia cutoff isn't straight. I'm sure it was definitely faster. Let's just check here real quick. Yeah, the cutoff is pretty much a straight 50-55 mile an hour for the whole thing. 60 through Carruthers. There's a bit of 40, 0.3 miles of 40, and then the remainder of 5 miles is 50 or 55. That's pretty common standard for this. But it's not nearly as slow as that part up in the between Pittsburgh and Cumberland. And these are the signals at, I think it's Turkey Foot, but I'm probably, nope, Doe Gully. Note these also have the G boards on them. I don't know if those ever did go away. Even, like I said, at some point CSX did away with stop and proceed, and they went to restricted proceed. That made the G boards for grade signals completely irrelevant, because they upgraded a stop and proceed to a restricting for certain classes of freight train. And as soon as you got rid of that conditional stop or non-conditional stop, then you don't need those G boards anymore. What's unfortunate is that a lot of the New York Central Main Line used to be this way in Ohio, Indiana, with parallel bracket mass for bidirectional brackets. What was interesting in the New York Central era, they were just straight up brackets. When Conrail had to do double stacks, this is so clever. Double stacks get in the way of your sight lines for the bracket unless your bracket is goofball tall. What Conrail did is that they reversed one of the signals on each bracket to turn it into a very, very, very tall mast, bidirectional mast. I don't have a lot of photos of those, again, because NS, because just it was hard to, you really had to be on a really, really, really late train to see those. They were east of Elkhart, where you would start getting sun. And the other problem with those early trains in Ohio is even today, is catastrophic backlighting, especially in the winter. Nice zoom here, but a little bit unfortunate for the with the blur. Looks like I got a duplicate one. I'll include them both. Can't be too picky with CPL pictures. And this is the eastbound signal at Orleans Road. Orleans Road is the traditional end of the Magnolia Cutoff. That's where there's going to be a tower there. There's Randolph Tunnel. Here comes that. So at this point, the old road is nearly parallel with the other cutoff. It's sort of a bit at a lower level. Today it's like you can still sort of see where it is. It comes through this cut. There's only one cut. So the cutoff goes to this mountain, the old road. By the way, which is on the map as Low Line Road. They would call it the Low Line as opposed to the High Line. But the true start of it is this interlocking called Orleans Road, the town of Orleans. And that's where there would have been in a tower to, where you make the decision, do you go by the slow route or the fast route? In fact, we can probably go to our North American somewhere I had that. There it is. Oh, this is New York. Hold on. I think I have a picture of the tower there. Maybe not. Let me see what's down in West Virginia. I thought I had oh, it's in that book. It's not here. It's in that book. Yeah, this guy doesn't even have Patterson Creek on here. All right, anyway. I don't even... So here's an interesting thing. Fun fact. This bracket, which is actually not even that complicated, it's just got straight routes and diverging. Just two orbitals. It's the 12 o'clock and a 6 o'clock. So when CSX came through and did their initial replacement, they replaced up to Orleans Road inclusive. The guy whose property is next adjacent to this interlocking, he got the bracket. It's in his yard. I have photos of it. It's still there. Where it was. There it is, right there. You can barely see it. But the bracket mast has been sitting there for the better part of 15 years. Or 10 years. A decade. Over a decade. So it's still there. Interesting. I don't think I can get street view on this. This is so far in the sticks. Nah. But I have photos of it. Here we have Orleans Road interlocking, just a crossover. But again, I have photos of this in the four track era, and it was quite a bit more more involved. Like I said, this is where they decided where are you going fast route or slow route. And here we have the 4-track signal bridge. I don't know what would have been at the other end, if there was a signal bridge on both ends back in the day, or if it would have had something weird with brackets. Because usually this is where you would sort of go from a east-east, west-west configuration to an east-west, east-west type of configuration. You can see that there was a lot of modifications sort of done to these signal bridges back when they made this. So yeah, this is where you could see the real savings of CTC. Just like in New York Central, you would have 4 single-direction tracks, and then they would get turned into 2 bi-directional tracks. I never got out to Orleans Road in person when it was still in B&O, and when it was still in its CPL configuration. I said they zapped it before I got out here, but I did. I do have a good deal of photos of it. So the next component was the next stretch between here and Hancock was the last bit of CPLs on the line, and I would one of my I wouldn't say it's like one of my first in a situation that would be repeated later on. This is where I sort of made the decision. This and Alto Tower, where I made the decision that driving, spending an entire day and driving for 6 to 8 hours was worth getting the photos. And by that I meant there's an interesting quirk about the right-of-way, in that because it was 4-track, there's a utility road on it, space. You see these a lot, where especially on the PRR, where there's a place where the CSX trucks and stuff can drive, but that road is used by property owners who have campsites on the Potomac. So it's technically there's an easement on that. And you will see people starting right here. You'll just see random shitbox West Virginia K cars driving along there. Now it gets a little bit spicy right before you get to Orleans Road. But I was able to drive all the way along the right of the 10 miles from Hancock to Orleans Road along the right-of-way in 2012 and fully document all the signal locations that you are about to see coming up. You're not seeing those photos here, but just remember that, like I said, that was this was the point where I really started making way more of an effort to not just be content with photos on the train. Now, should I have started doing this earlier? Absolutely. Part of it was I didn't quite have... When I did that in 2012, I had a friend to go do it with. I had a companion. And then later I made more signal friends in the area who would do this stuff with me. Then I just started doing it myself, if I didn't. At this point, there's absolutely there's pretty much no good way for me to well, I said this, I can get out to a bunch, but I've used up almost everything I can drive to, except on the RF&P. That's where I'm starting to hit a bunch down there. Whatever's left. But I really only had one adventure past Orleans Road when I went to Magnolia and Paw Paw and Green Spring. I hit a number of locations. So this is Turkey Foot. This is another place where you would see the double approach, and you can see that the little road you drive on was looking a little rough there. It's very it went from fairly hard packed to very loose ballast. This is the most challenging part of the drive. Listen, nothing's stopping you. You can go, the royal you, all you people out in the whatever land, YouTube land, can go and drive this yourselves if you want. Start at Hancock, you go down to the yard where the tower is, you make a right, you keep driving along the right of way, and you just keep going. But when you get to this point, it's getting a little spicy. Yep, here we have Turkey Foot. Now here's one mystery for me. That this was a 4-track zone, but this is the one location where you do not see a 4-track capable signal structure. You had these brackets instead. So I assume that these had to have been some sort of replacement from whatever was originally here. But the right-of-way does also look, this is its narrowest, but I'm sure that there was 4 tracks here. All right, coming up to our last batch of photos that'll get us all the way to Hancock. No more questions? Okie dokie. Hope I'm at least entertaining you. I'm gonna cut this one photo short. In fact, I might cut this 2 photos short. I also might have missed some signals in here. So 134 is Sidling Hill. Let's see if I missed any. Nope, it's the next one. Again, note your pole line. For whatever reason, the pole line lost a bunch of wires. Maybe I think they had might have had a bundled one. I'm not sure. But see those ones there, those little white insulators in that box. That's your power line. So that's a 440 volt transformer. It's usually often made by the Olin Corporation. This one sort of vanishes into the woods. When I came here in person, it was during winter, so I didn't have the issues with like the vegetation. This one really flipped to clear fast. I didn't even have to zoom in on this. Let's see if I did this one or cut it. No, I cut it, but I'll do it again. Next is Great Capon. This is another place you can see why how that road is much more pronounced and drivable. This little crossing you see there is the one additional entry point you can get onto it from. Checking everything here. All right, we're good. I'll give you a quick location of where we're going. So this is now the old 4-track zone. Pretty prominent right of way. A lot of loops in the track going east and west and all over the place. There's the town. Great Capon. You can see where that one little the access path is. It's somewhere in here. There's the new signal location. Although maybe that wasn't it. Yeah, sorry. Some of them are farm Xings, but I could have sworn there was one like right downtown. You could that's where you would get onto that little road. I'm not seeing it. Yeah, that was just a farm crossing. Next one is Drywall. One of the better names. Again, after 2005, CSX stopped publishing the alternate signal names in their rule book, but you will still, again, if you're on the scanner, you will still hear certain Amtrak crews and stuff using them. So this one is not flipped yet. Oh, that's a cut. And so this is the one that had the signal replaced, but it was not re-signaled. Still had the original pole line feed, still using relays. but this was Sir John. So this had been replaced for ages. I don't even think these had. Yeah, I don't know when this was done, but I'd only ever seen this as a Darth Vader cantilever. So this says Sir John's Run. That is the correct name. I would often hear it as Sir John. And this should be Ambrose. This is a nice. This was definitely one of the nicer ones. I remember specifically when I went out there to get photos of it. Note that there's an extra orbital. That is for the next. The next location is Grasshopper Hollow, which is an interlocking on track number 2. Oh, you can see why these poles don't have as many pole lines here. Most of the lines have been replaced by a telecom grade cable. So instead of needing like 4 things of open wire, they put most of them into a polyethylene sheath telecom cable right there. Like the type you would have in the thing that would go into an office building in the 80s. Oops, I got a nice zoom one on this too. And we're coming up on Grasshopper, and here is Grasshopper Hollow. The signal on the left there, that's for the interlocking. The other one on the right is an automatic. Both of them can display approach medium for the upcoming Hancock Tower. This looks pretty straight. I wonder how fast I could get there. Yeah, this area was 65. After those there was a lot of 65 mile an hour in here, but that's about as fast as you're going to get going. This stretch of 65 was only 1 mile long. Yeah, this is the middle of summer, so it's quite a bit of haze going on. 1 second. And then we have the signal bridge at Grasshopper Hollow. Oh, I'm sorry. The one on the track 1 is the interlocked one, not the one on the right. And just like Okanokono, the relay HUD has been elevated in an early example. Now today, they all are that, pretty much. But back then, only probably the most flood prone ones were. Let's see. Last one. Sorry. Just checking the thing. Oops. I'm just checking how I did the Grasshopper Hollow naming, so I'm making consistent. Hancock, Harper's Ferry. Oh, Green Spring. There's Grasshopper Hollow. Yeah. Yeah, when I went here in person, I took at least, 113, probably more photos. If it was just the auto, then that would get its own bunch. Like the brackets at Turkey Foot was out there, 92. One of the signal bridges, about 74. All right, I think that's everything. There's the damn problem. Alright, I think that's all. Well, thank you so much for watching. I'm just cleaning up a few things here. And throw me any comments, and I will. So this is the last. This is the last bit for a while. I will be back. Who knows? I think sometime around the 15th. Let's check this. I'd love to get this finished up. Don't know when though. It's April. I would expect possibly on the night of the 12th to 13th to get at least one more night done, but we'll see from there. So I have 85. So it's two more short nights. So look for the next time between the April 12th, and then I will almost certainly be back. I might be back the following week even. I gotta do some car stuff. So we'll see how that goes. All right, I'll talk to you later. Let me see if people have any questions. Oh, we got something in here. So the B&O CPL signal bridges resemble those of the Pennsylvania. I can go through and take a quick look. Hold on. I would say to the extent that they're signal bridges. The accoutrements you get for the CPLs definitely make them look distinctive. The high railings on top, specifically, you don't see that on the PRR ones. Yeah, if you have an eye, I would say not from all angles, but I think head on they definitely do have a more PRR appearance. But the PRR ones have the girder is I think a little taller. And they definitely don't look like a post roll. I mean, I can see if I can pull up a PRR one. Might take a little bit though. Hold on. They get a mainline one on the main line. So actually, it looks like the PR used less cross truss support, and they also had a thing for the corners tended to be rounded. Not all the time. Yeah, you see, these some of them have been changed, but the PR would have rounded ones. And they have a slightly less density on the stuff. I think they're also a little taller. So what I want to look at is the inside of the, yes, here's the other thing. The PRR ones had, I just got to find an example. Here we go. The PRR ones had a wider stance. While these did get narrower at the top, the PRR ones had a distinctly, had more of an angle on them. And these just had a lot more going on to support the CPLs. Yeah, you can see there's my car there at the parked under the signal bridge, my old car. Let's see if I have some more interesting ones. Looks like I managed to keep my some of my vehicle out of a lot of these photos. There it is. Yeah. The ballast was getting rather whatever there. So I just drove along and got pictures of all the signals. All right. Anyway, no stream tomorrow night. This is the last night. I'll be back on. I hope that night of April 12th. And we'll see how that goes. All right. Have a great night. I will see you then. Thanks for tuning in.